We get a sneak peek at Neil Brown's Make or Break season coming up Saturday in Morgantown. Welcome to the Voice of College Football and our Mountaineers live show that we bring you each and every week, talking West Virginia football with you. Can't wait for the spring game and to see what the Mountaineers have trying to bounce back from 5-7. We've got Joey Foster on the line, of course. And we also have Nick from Nick DTV right here on YouTube. Nick, what's going on today?
What's going on, guys?
Nick, we know you love your West Virginia football. Just tell us a little bit about yourself in regards to loving West Virginia football and what you've got going on.
Well, first off, Nick DTV here. Been a huge West Virginia fan my whole life. I remember watching the heartbreaker against Pittsburgh. In 2007, watched the Fiesta Bowl. That's kind of where I got hooked on, and been a huge fan ever since. I got a YouTube channel at Nick DTV. Post stuff here and there. Trying to get a little bit more active here, especially now in the off season when I can kind of focus and steamroll a little bit more. So, looking forward to that. First and foremost, I want to help you all out, build this channel as best as I can. So here I am.
Excellent. Appreciate you being here, Nick. And look forward to talking some West Virginia football here in the next 60 minutes. And I want to remind everyone that we've got a West Virginia channel that we simulcast these shows on. And please check out the channel. Subscribe. We will drop the link here a couple times during the next hour. But please lock in on our West Virginia channel right here at the Voice of College Football. Well, Joey, nothing like a spring game to see where the team stands. I know there's a lot of talk concerning the quarterback competition between Garrett Green and Nico Marchiol in particular. Both guys can move around a little bit, pretty mobile quarterbacks. And obviously Garrett Green's got the experience advantage, but Nico Marchiol probably a higher ceiling. So maybe we start right there because everybody wants to know who's going to win the quarterback job.
About a month ago, the Voice of Morgantown put out an article. That's Brad Smith. I think everybody knows him. Brad Smith put out an article and said that Nico Marchiol was going to be the starting quarterback, that Nico told him the job was promised to him. And Nico's agent had told him this. When I first read the article, a lot of things Brad writes, I throw aside. But this one kind of struck me because of just saying everything that he said in it, because he was going to actually give Nico Marchiol an NIL deal, according to him. He was going to give Nico Marchiol an NIL deal, and that's how he found out Nico was guaranteed the starting job. I did reach out to a couple of my contacts at West Virginia. And without getting a straightforward answer, I can tell you right now, unequivocally, yes, he has been promised a starting job. So it looks like Nico will be our starter. Now, will he start him in the spring game? Who knows? I'm sure that's yet to be seen. But that looks like Nico is going to be the starter at West Virginia. Now, Nico's a great quarterback, 4-star quarterback. And like you say, really high ceiling. So everybody's expecting him to do really good. He's supposed to be the future of West Virginia. And if we look across the board at everyone, we are so young as a team that if we can get through this season pretty good, and Neil Brown a couple of days ago put out a press conference and said, we're a lot better than we were last year. We've made big strides in this game since last year. We're going to be a lot better. So that tells me that, okay, maybe if we can trust Neil Brown, right, maybe we can do better this year than the 5-7 record. I'm wondering what's going to be good enough to save Neil Brown. Is it going to be 6-6, 7-5, 8-4, or what? But here we got Nico brought up there. So Nico Marchiol was 4-star quarterback. He's from Chandler, Arizona, at Hamilton High School. He at Hamilton he went 639 completions on 943 attempts, 8,310 yards, 91 touchdowns, 24 interceptions. And his last year's stats, 2022 at West Virginia, he just came in for a little bit of mop-up duty here and there. He went 4 of 13 for 61 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. That's supposed to be the future of West Virginia. Nate, do you know anything else about that?
About the quarterback controversy, not exactly, but it's kind of funny though. I mean, you look at what Neil's got his decision, what he's got going on, and it seems like a familiar story across the country, especially with a lot of these NIL deals. Is you get these young quarterbacks with a lot of talent that are promised, to take over sooner rather than later. And, then ahead of them, you have an experienced guy who knows the system, maybe not as talented per se, but his experience kind of is able to make up for that. And it's a tough decision because, what Neil's got is, let's say Garrett Green is the better guy. Well, you start Garrett Green just to watch Nico, who is a 4-star. And if for those of you guys that aren't familiar with West Virginia football, 4-star talent does not come easy. All right. So you got to imagine a 4-star as a 5-star anywhere else. All right. That's the way I look at it, at least. So 4-stars don't come easy. So this guy, Arizona State Player State of the Year or whatever, all kinds of accolades. I'm pretty sure he was like down in the fourth quarter of a high school game with they were down by 28 points and he came back within like a minute or something like that. Might be exaggerating a little bit, but it was something close to that. So the guy's got some talent. Now, what I'm hearing is kind of literally exactly what we expected, right? So you got Garrett Green. He's a speedster. He can get on the outside. He can make these big 60-yard runs like it's nothing, right? He can do pretty good in the pass game, but every once in a while he gets that, shaky. He gets a little shaky, makes a mistake when it really is important. On the other side, Nico, we've heard that he's more of a physical guy. He's not as fast, but he likes to run people over. We saw that a little bit, especially the Oklahoma State game and the Oklahoma game. When he got his chance, we saw him, lower his shoulder a little bit and be able to, show what he's made of a little bit. Now, his upside is the passing game, and I've heard that he's made some tremendous throws on the ball in the spring off season or whatever, putting the ball right where it needs to be, blah, blah, blah. Of course, there's some mistakes that he's making as well, which comes with age, So we'll see.
Yeah. Now, Mark, if you roll it up just a little bit, I'm going to see. I don't have his thing open up in front of me, but down there I put how big Nico is and the size. So yeah, I'll just scroll down. There you go. So he's 6'2", 216, compared to Garrett, who's like 5'9". I think he was 218. Or no, he was 189, I believe. So Nico's a bigger, more physical quarterback. Plus, he's a taller quarterback. All the things I've heard from people at West Virginia is that Garrett Green has trouble seeing over the offensive line to see downfield, and so that's why you see him doing like a one read, and he doesn't see that anybody else open. He'll take off, and he's a great scrambler. Don't get me wrong, he's a great quarterback, but you got to have more than one read. Nico can drop back and actually see over the line. So I think that's a big difference there.
Yeah, kind of going back to what you're saying. You see a lot of this in high school. A lot of times, the quarterbacks in high school maybe not as big. They might not be as good of a threat down the field throwing the ball. And you'll see a lot of tendencies is they like to roll out of the pocket immediately when they take that snap. You see them kind of roll out of the pocket, and what that does is it lowers your space that you have to work with. You're running towards the sidelines, and the field gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Rather than you got your tackles sitting on the outside of you when you're in that pocket. So what you want, because what they're doing is they're pushing those defensive ends, they want to push them out. And if those guys want to come up field, okay, then you push them where they want to go. So that way the quarterback can kind of sit up and sit in that pocket. And see, with smaller quarterbacks, it's a lot harder for them to really get comfortable sitting right there in that gut and being able to pick apart the defense. So that's another advantage that Nico Marchiol has against Garrett Green. So we'll have to look at that.
I was looking at that. So the weight difference is 46 or 45 pounds, right? So Garrett Green, 6 foot 170, Nico 6'2", 216 pounds. So he's got 46 pounds on Garrett Green right there. If you just look at high school numbers, so Nico Marchiol in high school was 639 out of 943 attempts, 8,310 yards, 91 touchdowns, 24 interceptions. Garrett Green was 31 of 83, 535, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Now the difference is Garrett Green also played wide receiver and running back. So that might give West Virginia a little edge there to be able to say, okay, we'll start Nico, but we're going to maybe put Garrett Green out in the slot, maybe line him up in the backfield occasionally, maybe run some reverses with him, because he's done that. He's played wide receiver, and he's played and actually did more of that in high school than he did quarterback. So that could be a nice little wrinkle.
And actually, we've seen that last year. Like we saw, or last season rather, we saw the same thing that they were experimenting with putting him out there. And what that tells me, because at the time, I think I even saw it as early as the Pitt game. And what that told me in the very beginning, when I saw Garrett Green lined up out there at slot, what it told me is that this guy is way too damn talented to be sitting on the sidelines, right?
Right.
And he reminds me of almost of Tim Tebow. Now, not the size, not necessarily the strength or the size, but just the way he handles himself, his demeanor. He's not a quarterback. He's a football player. And you can tell in his eyes that he doesn't care. He wants to win the game. He doesn't care if he plays 1 snap or 100 snaps. As long as they win the game and he does everything he can for this team, he's happy. And I can kind of see that edge, that mentality. So it's a shame to see him. If Nico wins a job, I'd like to see him at least get on the field, you know?
Yeah. So Chad in the chat, or no, wasn't Chad. Who was telling me this? Oh, Forrest told me that my weights I'm using are way out of date. I got them off ESPN. That's where I went. So I mean, I don't know when they uploaded them. That could have been coming out of high school. I'm just letting you know that I got them off ESPN. So I didn't actually go to the Westfield website to get those weights. But yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I agree with everything you said there. I just think that it would be great to see him in the game no matter what, because he's a great athlete. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You can't leave Garrett Green out of the game, so you've got to put him in somewhere. And whether that's putting him in the backfield and maybe Nico getting the ball and snapping it, tossing it back to him, and he throws the pass or he runs the ball. He likes to do the one read and run. That's a great opportunity to put him in the backfield. Nico throwing the ball, he does his one read. If the guy's covered, he just takes off running. So, but the thing about it is, teams will be expecting that as well. So, you've got to watch where you use that. You can only get away with it every so often.
Yeah, so obviously Garrett Green, as you mentioned, Joey and Nick, a threat out of the backfield to take off, whether that's a designed quarterback run or that's him improvising. 276 yards to average 6.1 yards per carry as a quarterback, and that includes sack yardage. Like you say, Joey, he's a threat. Scored 5 rushing touchdowns. Now, passing numbers weren't great, but they weren't awful either. 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, completed 55% of his passes. So what do we think was the contributing factor to in a college football landscape where you want your quarterback completing more like 65, 67% of his passes. He hit on 55. Was that mostly him? Was that offensive line? Was that
No, I
receivers?
think it was just the playing time. You got to remember, JT Daniels was the starter for most of the year, and so he didn't get a lot of playing time. And when he did get in the game, I don't think he was quite ready. I don't think he was quite ready last year to take control. So he made some bad passes. He made some tough decisions, but he's still done better than JT, if you ask me, overall. And his scrambling ability is just tremendous. But I don't associate those numbers with anything except that playing experience and playing time and getting in the game.
Well, and actually, those numbers, as dumb as this might sound, actually impressed me more because I saw a lot of times where uh, nobody was open downfield. He was running out of real estate coming towards the sidelines, and he did what he was supposed to do and what he was told to do by the coaches, and that's to chuck the ball out of bounds and live another play. So, and a lot of times we saw that where, he would get what it was a quick out, right? And they want him to get to the outside and almost like a RPO, but not quite an RPO because you don't have the running back fake handoff, but just a quick out. And if there's a pass there, get it there. If there's a running lane, run it. If nobody's open, chuck it out of bounds. They did that play a lot of times, and there were several times where he lived to see another play, so he didn't get a chance to you know get the ball down the field, but he did what he needed to do. So
Some of
you
the
know
plays that some of the plays I seen him run last year, I hadn't seen run since probably Major Harris was our quarterback, because it would be sort of like a drop back play action pass with a rollout, bootleg style, and he has one read. If he's covered, just take off. Major Harris used to do that. I'm sure you remember that, Mark.
Oh
And
yeah.
he would just, it's just a play action pass, and he would just roll out, or you could call it a bootleg if he reversed his field, and he would take off on you.
You know,
That was something that they did with Garrett Green last year quite often, and I kind of enjoyed that. It was a change of pace, if you ask me, on how they were doing things.
you don't think Nick remembers that?
No,
oh
I
yeah,
doubt if Nick remembers that.
clear as day, clear
So
as day.
Nick, based on what you said about Garrett Green and how they used him last year, what is your level of confidence in offensive coordinator Chad Scott and passing game coordinator Sean Reagan? Where do you stand on those guys?
Well, that's a interesting question. Now Sean Reagan, he's been with the program, for as long as I can remember. Um, I It's been a while since I remember Sean Reagan not being on the program. So, he seems like he really at this point just fits the mold of West Virginia football. Um, Now Chad Scott is an interesting guy because I think now he's the offensive coordinator, obviously. Now, and he's been with the program for a while as well. I think part of the reason that they offered him the offensive coordinator job is because of his recruiting abilities and the fear that they might eventually lose him to another program. And the players love him. He has a tremendous upside when it comes to coaching and especially the running back. The running back room has pretty much been one of the most productive rooms since Neil Brown took over, and that's a credit to Chad Scott. Another thing is, you know, I think that you also have to look at what we have coming back. We have an extremely experienced offensive line that is coming back, and another place that we're going to excel at is running backs. So the running backs in the offensive line is about the strongest position groups that we have. So with Chad Scott being a running back guy, it would make sense to kind of help, give him the role at play calling and kind of, you know, have him kind of influence the play calls a little bit when it comes to the running attack. That's my 2 cents, at least.
Yeah, I think Chad Scott's being promoted was a few things. Number one, he is a great coach. You're right. Chad Scott's a great coach. I love watching his videos when he's mic'd up. The players love him. He's a great guy. But another thing too is that Neil Brown's seat couldn't be much hotter. He's more or less a lame duck coach, right? And they offered the job to Clint Trickett out of Marshall, and Clint Trickett turned him down, basically because Neil Brown's a lame duck coach. So you know, now if Neil Brown can get in there and turn around this year, he could probably save his job. I don't see that happening myself. But at the same time, I think Chad Scott is a good coach. I just don't know what to expect out of our offense with him as offensive coordinator. I think we lost Nick. He must have hit a dead zone.
Yeah, hopefully he can pop back in. Everyone, this is West Virginia Live. We come your way each and every week right here at the Voice of College Football. It's been 57 consecutive weeks. We got Joey Foster here, Nick from Nick D TV joining us. Hopefully he'll be able to make it back. And a lot of good things here at the Voice of College Football we want to make you aware of. We lined up an interview and talked to Tom Luganbill, ESPN recruiting coordinator and director there at the Worldwide Leader. We released that conversation turned out to be a lot longer than I anticipated. So it was 45 minutes. So decided to make that a two-parter. So we released the first one today, everyone. So check out, you learn a ton of football from Tom Luganbill. And actually, I think the second part of the conversation is even much better than the first part of the conversation when we get into dissecting recruiting rankings and quarterback play for the NFL draft and college football. And it's a really great discussion with Tom Luganbill. So check that out. I also started a series, just released a video a couple hours ago, where I'm looking at, with all the speculation concerning the four corner schools, possibly Oregon, Washington, the Big 12. Not that we are in any way promoting that or predicting that, but it's fun to look at those particular schools and how they could fare in their new conference. So starting to release some videos on how Oregon, Washington, the four corner schools could perform in the Big 12. And for Oregon and Washington, obviously, they've applied to the Big 10. So we started out the series looking at Oregon and how they've done through the years against the Big 10. And I made a direct comparison between both Oregon and Washington and particular Big 10 teams on what you might be able to expect on how they would perform in that conference going forward. Good to have Nick back with us. Can you hear us, Nick?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, sorry about that.
Perfect. No worries. No worries. Happens all the time. We have to deal with technology all the time. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Joey, I know you love CJ Donaldson, and I know that this is also a guy that, unless you're a hardcore college football fan, if you're not a West Virginia fan or maybe a Big 12 fan, this guy does not show up on as much radar across the nation as he deserves. And hopefully he's going to get his due and get the kind of carries to show, again, what he can do. He's already proven it, but maybe on a bigger stage, obviously opening night against Penn State. And he obviously leads what could be, and I'm going to throw this question out there, is this the best unit on either side of the ball, the running back room?
Without a doubt, in my opinion, the running back room is the best. And I've got on the slide I sent you there is also C.J. Donaldson's numbers and Tony Mathis's numbers. But yeah, C.J. Donaldson, because he was recruited as a tight end, and he's a tight end, period. But they found something with him in the backfield that came as a complete shock to everybody during the Pitt game last year. All of a sudden, he lines up in the backfield, and I mean, they couldn't stop him. He was unstoppable. So I was excited about that. Now people know more about him. But yeah, I mean, he got injured last year, so he wasn't in quite a few games, and he was used very limited. And he had 87 attempts, 526 or 87 rushing yards, 87 attempts. 526 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. 6 yards per carry. And he also had 9 receptions for 27 yards and averaged 3 yards per reception. But they didn't really target him with the ball so much. Now, the other day in Neil Brown's press conference, he said, we're going to involve the running backs and the tight ends more in the game. We lost the tight end to transfer portal. they may move Donaldson back to tight end, but that won't be so bad because he's so physical, and they recruited him as a tight end, obviously, so he must be pretty good tight end. But his running back abilities to just see the hole and bust that line really came as a shock in that Pitt game to me. I was really surprised. I expected Tony Mathis to do the same. Tony Mathis was good, but Donaldson was something special. What did you think about him, Nick?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that, he certainly, the running back room is certainly the most experienced, the best, however you want to put it, group we got coming back. And another thing that you mentioned, you talked about how Neil Brown, wants to run the ball a lot more, wants to be a lot more physical. And it's not just that, but it's also the type of run plays that we're going to do. Now, we did a lot of pin and pulls. We did a lot of buck sweeps, a lot of outside zone runs, especially a lot of outside zone runs, actually. So what we're going to have now is a lot more interior running, and that's going to only help CJ's numbers because obviously CJ, he's a big guy and he likes to run, in between the tackles. He's not somebody that necessarily, now he can, and that's what surprised.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Thank you. Rose up again.
No,
Joey, you're
you
supposed
got
to
me.
finish a sentence. There we got. We
Yeah.
think we
Okay.
got you still, Nick.
So what'd you miss? Where was
We
that?
didn't miss much, just the last
No,
few
no.
seconds.
Okay, so yeah, no. So what surprised me the most is how fast he is, and so he can get to the outside and make something happen. But
No, he loves it. And he's right though. He is fast for a big guy. He's 6'2", 240, and if those numbers are correct now, because I got those off ESPN as well. He's a big guy, and so when he comes through the line, you get these guys. I can remember we had Amos Zeraway, right? Short, stocky, low center of gravity. Adrian Morrell, Avon Coburn, those guys, not quite as big as Donaldson, and a little bit shorter and stuff. This is a different style of running back for West Virginia. That Donaldson's a different style of running back than we've had in the past. The last one I can remember his size, and I don't even know if he was that size, was Jason Gwaltney. I think Jason Gwaltney was probably about the size of Donaldson, and Gwaltney, as far as I can remember, was a 5-star recruit. But so I think that Donaldson, yeah, his speed is really deceiving. A lot like if you remember Geno Smith, he would take off on people, and his speed was real deceiving. He could take off and get the first down, and because he was so long legged. Donaldson is long legged as well, but he's got so much muscle that you can't tackle him. You reach out there and you try to arm grab him, he's just going to run through you.
yeah, that's basically what I was saying before I cut out. But yeah, no, he's just incredibly quick for somebody his size, and I'm excited to see, especially if we get a couple more interior linemen, because that's really the big thing. We need to beef up more in the guard and center positions, and we're gonna see something special.
Yeah.
Especially,
I apologize, Nick. I'm
oh,
sorry. Chad Atkins, you're right. KJ Harris was his size. You're exactly right.
but yeah, no. And another guy, Jalen Anderson, Justin Johnson. Now those guys, they were like kind of the new kids on the block in town last year. But man, those guys got tremendous upside as well. I believe they're both 4 stars, if not high 3 stars. So they got a lot of talent, and we've seen them. I think uh, each one had at least 100-yard game.
Yeah.
Um, all of our backs have had 100-yard games or close to it at least. So that's something that you don't get very often.
I know at the end of last season, one thing I was worried about was we was going to lose it back to the transfer portal because we were so deep at back. You got Tony Mathis who could start just about anywhere. You got C.J. Donaldson who could start about anywhere. Jalen Anderson, like you said, could start just about anywhere. We got 3-4 deep in the backfield. So I was really afraid that we were going to lose some people. But yeah, here's Tony Mathis's numbers last year: 135 rushes for 562 yards, 4.2 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns, and I couldn't find any receiving stats for him. So it
Yeah,
seems
I
like to
think
me he caught some passes, but I couldn't find any receiving stats.
Yeah, I think CJ seemed like more the go-to. Oh, and that's another thing I was going to go to. So really, according to the coaches, his coming out party really wasn't the Pitt game, but they had a scrimmage about a week before the Pitt game, and he was it was the second offense going up against the #1 defense, and they said, for just to mess around, they put him at running back, right? And they had him running the ball, just to scout because if you remember, forgot the guy's name, but the Pitt running back, um, he's a very big guy, just like Donaldson. So they were actually scouting the Pitt squad, so they had him running the ball, and they noticed that literally nobody on that defensive side could tackle him. Now, that's not saying much, knowing what that defense did this season, but it still shows that it was like a spark. Like they saw something and they're like, okay, and they ran with it and they knew it was going to work.
Yeah. So I did a poll, and I want to see how this poll's doing real quick. I'm gonna add it to the stream here. I did a poll today, just a little bit ago, to see what everybody was going to look for in the spring game tomorrow. And what I hate about YouTube polls is they only give you 5 options. So you got to sit there and there's 100 options you could be looking at, right? So I just said explosive offense, a stingy defense, great quarterback to receiver play, great running back play, or a combination of all 4. Right now, 38% explosive offense is what everybody's going to be looking for tomorrow. And I think that's a testament to where our offense has been for the last couple of years. It seems like it's been really stale for Neil Brown to be an offensive coordinator, right? To be an old offensive coordinator, our offense has been really stagnant. We've been priding ourselves on our defense in 2019 and 2020, and then in 21 we fell off. 22 it was atrocious. So I'm hoping that our defense can make a comeback this year, but I don't have a lot of confidence in Jordan Leslie, our defensive coordinator. So I don't know. I don't think he's running. I don't think he's got the players' attention sometimes in the locker room, if you ask me. So I think that's the biggest problem. I think we've got the talent to be decent on defense, and defense is hard to do in the Big 12 period, just simply because of the schemes everybody runs on offense. But at the same time, you got to be able to stop something. And our middle was like Swiss cheese. I mean, it didn't matter where you went, just pick a hole, and somebody was wide open. So our defense
Yeah,
has to take a step up.
yeah. Well, I mean, I knew we were going to lose some guys in the secondary because, I mean, let's be real. Nobody really seemed like they belonged or they meshed in what we were trying to do last year. And that goes to that FCS crap that Neil Brown has been trying to push on us. And if you
Yeah.
notice that he hasn't done that this year, you know. So, but no, what I was trying to say is that, like, I've noticed what irritated me about this coming off season and what hurt me a little bit is seeing some of the defensive linemen transfer out. You got Jordan Jefferson that went to LSU, and generally that's been our strong suit. If you look at the past 4 years, that's still a testament to Neil Brown and line guys. Oh, you got me back.
We got you.
We got you.
But yeah, no. So that kind of was a blow. Is losing some of our defensive line, a strength of Neil Brown's teams. You know,
Yeah. Uh, another thing too, because he throws up. So I go back to 2019. We had Vic Koenig as our defensive coordinator. Vic Koenig, I think, was probably one of the better defensive coordinators in the nation, if you ask me. Done a great job. Unfortunately, got in some trouble, quoting Bible verses to players and things or something. But they ended up firing him. They brought in Jamila Dye and Jordan Leslie. They shared duties as the defensive coordinators in 2020. We had one of the better defenses in the country, finishing 33rd, I think, in the country. And then in 2022, it was just Jordan Leslie on his own, and we know what happened there. So we've got to see an improvement in defense this year. So that's where I would disagree with like the poll I put up, where everybody's wanting to see explosive offense. I want to see an improved defense myself. Now I want to see all four though. I want to see good quarterback play, but I don't read a lot into spring games. But you can kind of read where we are defensively because them receivers are going to run routes. And if they can get open like they did last year, or obviously our defense hasn't improved. So I'm gonna be watching our defense real close tomorrow, especially our secondary.
So was this pass defense that was 111th in the country last year? Was it that bad because no pass rush, bad secondary? I know that they didn't tackle as well as they should have because the competition in the Big 12, for the Big 12 being a passing league, it was not much of a passing league last year. You know, Oklahoma didn't pass the ball as well as they typically do. Texas didn't because Quinn Ewers had a big splash against Bama and he didn't have much of a season. Kansas State doesn't throw the ball particularly well. Pitt was okay throwing the ball with Keaton Slovis. So they didn't face the kind of passing attacks that they typically do.
Right. Thank goodness. Thank
You
goodness.
know,
Because
Brock
like I
Purdy
say,
was
we was,
gone from Iowa State.
and it wasn't the pass rush. I don't think it was because we had a great defensive line. Now, of course, we had Jordan Jefferson and Dante Stills, right? And Dante Stills is going to be going in the NFL draft here, shortly. So Dante Stills and Jordan Jefferson, they were eating up offensive lines. They were getting in the backfield. We was putting pressure on the quarterbacks. The problem was he didn't have to wait long till somebody was open. Our defensive backs could not cover for more than 5-6 yards. It seemed like to me. I don't know if Nick seen the same thing I did, but they were just wide open.
see, I did see the same thing you did, but I also, like I said, going back, Neil Brown, he got several secondary guys from FCS programs and kind of threw them in there, threw them into Power Five, games, and expected not to be a drop off. And I'm sorry, but there's going to be a drop off. I mean, you're talking about 2-star, 1-star athletes that are just all of a sudden being asked to perform at the next level. It's not going to work out. And also going back to what you said about the line, I do believe that our line, our defensive line was good enough, but looking at years past, it wasn't as good as it has been. So that's another thing where I think our secondary they got exposed more this year because we didn't have as good of a defensive line as we normally have had. In the years past, maybe it was something where our secondary in years past wasn't as good as the numbers indicated, but they got boosted because of such great D-line play. And some of that was an absence this year, you know.
I agree with you there. I agree. Um, but I just think that tomorrow, like I say, in that spring game, I'm gonna be watching that secondary real close because I know we have some talent at wide receiver. They're young, but we have some talent. And if they can go down and get wide open again, this is going to be a long season for us. I'm afraid, and from what I understand, on the 15th at practice, Nico Marcio had two really long drives, and I'm talking long drives, like 80 and 85-yard drives down the field against our defense, even when he had their third down. Even having third downs, he was just throwing a completed pass for a first down. And, so I'm not hopeful that our defense has improved. But we'll see more tomorrow.
I do think a couple guys, if you want to look at a few people to really look for in our defense, talk about Lee Koba and Lance Dixon, two linebackers. Those guys were pretty productive last year on generally an unproductive unit. They showed a lot last year, and they're both. I heard that Lee Koba, out of the whole entire team, is one of the most improved players since last season. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do specifically, and the linebacker unit as a whole. Actually, the front seven as a whole. So that's my go-to.
Yeah.
The West Virginia game will kick off at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Plus. It's also on radio on the Mountaineers Sports Network. And we will have our take on this West Virginia spring game as well right here at the Voice of College Football. I'm going to be tracking the Nebraska spring game and doing a watch party and call-in show over on the Nebraska channel. That's at 2 Eastern Time as well. A lot of teams in spring play. There was a huge week this past weekend on the 15th. Still a ton of Power 5 programs playing this next weekend on Saturday, and we will, of course, deliver it here at the Voice of College Football.
Oh,
yeah. So we will do a post game tomorrow right here on the West Virginia channel for Voice of College Football, immediately following the spring game. So come back and tune in here, and we can make it a call-in show if you guys want to come in and tell us your thoughts as well on the game. Be happy to take some calls.
Awesome. So that should be about 3:00.
Yeah, should be right around 3.
Nice. I didn't know that for sure, Joey, so I didn't want to promote it.
Yeah, we'll do it. I think Nick's going to be able to be there. If not, I'll be here. We'll do a post game wrap up and have you guys call in, come in and join me. Tell your friends, bring your friends and neighbors with you. That'd be great. Nick, you gonna be able to make it in with me?
Yeah, I'll be able to call in for a couple minutes. Like I said, I'm on vacation, so I'm like, in and out. But I'm gonna try to tune in as best as I can.
Yeah.
Another thing, I wanted to respond to Chad Atkins. He mentioned Sean Martin. That's another guy I kind of wanted to talk about. He's, especially this offseason, he's been one of these guys that have been receiving a lot of accolades. And they say that, this guy's another guy that's ready to explode. I remember his guy, KJ Martin, and he was an athlete himself now. It kind of screwed us over with the whole Vic Koenig situation. Not going to get into that, but Sean Martin, he's a bigger guy, so he's going to look to fill some of the holes we lost in that defensive line. So looking forward to seeing him too.
Yeah, me too. Now, one thing I will say too, I'm probably going to, because it's not a guarantee, but I'm probably going to have to stream the game on my phone on ESPN Plus, because my wife and I have a few things we've got to get done tomorrow. But if I can get them done in the morning, I may go live here, and we can't obviously stream the game, but maybe I can keep you updated and give you a play-by-play for those of you that do not have ESPN Plus, and I'll just go live here with you during the whole game. There's no guarantee of that, but keep an eye out, because if I'm home, I will go live and post that.
Nick, Sean Martin had a pretty productive season last year. 12 games, 34 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks.
You with
All
us? You
right.
with us, Nick? You with us, Nick?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Is there anything else that we need to hit on for tomorrow, or anything else? Anything on the recruiting trail? Anything else? Of course, the transfer portal rumors, I'm sure, are swirling as well.
Yeah, you know, we watch these spring games, and it seems like immediately after the spring game, we had what, a player quit on Georgia's team, transferred out. What, 18 minutes before the spring game?
Yep.
Am I right about that? Like 20 minutes before the spring game, decided he isn't hitting the transfer portal. So that's stuff you've got to worry about. Player gets told, hey, you're not going to be a starter, or whatever. So after the game, they start hitting transfer portal. That'll be something that we'll be keeping a close eye on at West Virginia because, it's not over. It's not over, that's for sure. The transfer portal is really heating up all around college football. Oregon lost a star player today. Texas A&M lost a star player today. Um, um, Florida lost a star player yesterday, I believe it was. So, yeah, I mean, it's heating up all over the place. So, this transfer portal, this has got to be fixed. It's too easy for these players to transfer, and the thing about it is, they get in there and don't get picked up by anybody else. There's players in that portal that have been in there for a while, so I don't know what some of these players are thinking going in there.
Well, speaking of
And
the transfer portal, and also when we were talking about the secondary, I know a lot of people are high on the Minnesota transfer Beanie Bishop playing at cornerback, so we'll have to be looking out for him on
Right.
Saturday as well. He seems to be a nice addition from the Minnesota defense that was a top 15 to 20 defense in the country.
Anytime you pick up a player from the Big Ten on defense, you gotta smile, right? Yeah, yeah, because they don't get nothing but really good, talented defensive players in the Big Ten. The
yep.
Big Ten's well known for their defenses, and Minnesota is well known for their defenses. And that was a great defense they had last year. So yeah, pretty excited to watch that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Neil Brown, he's kind of realized what the transfer portal is. Like, it is what it is, and he's, especially this offseason, I'm pleased with how he has adapted to the whole situation. He's been a little bit more cutthroat, and kind of what you need in today's day and age. And he's going after guys. And if people leave, they leave, but he's immediately picking up new guys, and I think that's important. So
I
expect
tell
us to
you
get
what,
another expect us to get another interior offensive line and probably another receiver before fall camp.
yeah, I agree. I tell you another thing too. I know this is a football show. This is the West Virginia channel, and another one that's playing cutthroat is Bob Huggins. I mean, he is tearing that transfer portal up. It seems like every player that goes in there is top five. West Virginia gets them, and
Hey,
he's got he had number one, he had a number one class before he even got the last two transfers in, and they were top. One of them was number one, wasn't it? And the other one was number
oh
three.
yeah.
So,
Well,
so yeah, our basketball team's going to be great next year, man.
it looks like he's helping us out with football too, because a basketball player by the name of Jimmy Bell, he's hopping on board with Neil Brown's team, and they got him at tight end right now, running some reps. So we'll see
Right
about him too.
now, Neil
So
said he hasn't played. He hasn't played ball in a while because he went to prep school and they didn't have football there. They just had basketball. So he last time he played football was 2016 or 17. So he's trying to teach him some fundamentals the last few weeks. But he says that he's shaping up nicely. Should be a nice addition to the team.
it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I can't wait.
GOJ subscribing. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate you being here. Again, the West Virginia channel. Please subscribe. And all you have to do is go check out the channel. And I'm going to drop the link back in the chat here. And you get an indication right out of the gate as soon as you join the channel and see what's video is being posted right there on the front page. It's an interview we had with athletic director Ren Baker. So that gives you an idea of what kind of content that we will be providing going forward with some great interviews and great content that you're not necessarily going to see at other locations. So it's best to lock it in and subscribe right there on the West Virginia channel. And again, I will drop the link back in the chat.
And anybody that hasn't seen the interview that Mark did with Tom Luganville from ESPN, be sure and watch that. He posted that today. Part 2 is going to be coming out here in the next day or two. Great interview, man. You did a great job with that, Mark. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was great conversation. And, you know, I enjoyed the full 45 minutes and didn't expect Tom to give us that kind of time, and he did. And so we're going to release that in 2 parts. So the next part's going to come out here in the next day or two, and had even more fun on the second half of that. So great insight from Tom Luganville for sure. I am going to jump on here as soon as we get done with this show and take calls. And our topic tonight is what team is going to fare best that's in a new conference. So for both 2023, we've got a host of Group of 5 new additions. Then, of course, the Big 4 joining the Big 12, and which schools that we believe are going to do the best in their new conferences. And then, of course, the big explosion in 2024. So we'll talk that up. And, of course, you can always call about anything related to college football. That's coming up at 9 Eastern.
I will say, as a West Virginia fan, the 4 new additions coming in out of the Group of 5, we play all 4 of them. I expect to win all 4 of those games. I'll be highly disappointed if we do not. And I realize that just Cincinnati lost their coach. I realize that Houston's coach is pitiful. We know this. We're West Virginia guys. So, you know, we should be able to beat these 4 teams. UCF should be our toughest challenge, I think. BYU's good, but BYU lost a lot, so they're not going to be as good this year.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, folks, appreciate you being here. Nick, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate you being here. Look forward to more discussions with you. Nick DTV right here on YouTube. Enjoy the vacation.
Thank you.
For sure.
I just got to Georgia, so
you got to take advantage of the vacation time. You can't let anything get in that way. So we appreciate you giving us an hour.
Hey, always a pleasure. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. We'll see you later, man. Good night, everyone.
Right,
we love you. So Mark's going to go live here. I got to shoot over to another live for about 30 minutes, and then I'll be back over here to in the chat at Mark Rogers. So, yeah, just stay tuned to Mark Rogers, man.
Joey, you can always take the night off. You know that.
Yeah, you know, that's what my wife says. She's like, you do this all day. Do you realize you do it all day from the time you get up to the time you go to bed? Or YouTube all day long. And if you're not on a live, you're planning a live, you know, and she's right. But I enjoy it, man. It's a lot of fun, you know. It's just one of them things that just kind of gets in your blood, and you just got to keep going. So I enjoy it. I enjoy the crap out of it. Mark, folks, I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. Joey. Good to see you as always. Thanks for making this happen. And we will catch up with you soon, of course.
All right, bud.
All right, everyone. We are going to shut down this stream, and then we'll be right back within seconds. So you may give me a minute to 90 seconds. How about that? But it will be in seconds. It might be 90. It might be 120. It might be 180. But seconds, we will return right here at the Voice of College Football. And again, the topic tonight in the call-in show, which team will fare best in its new conference? Looking at teams, schools, changing conferences, and of course the Big 4 joining the Big 12 in 2023, and a bunch of shakeups in the American Conference and also Conference USA to look at. And we'll even fast forward to 2024. And again, take your calls on anything regarding college football, not just that topic, but we are always willing to take your comments and questions concerning college football. So again, we're going to shut down. I'll be right back in just a couple minutes right here at the Voice of College Football.